We're back to satisfy the insatiable demand for our podcast. Well, I don't say our, just me today. Bringing you the Lateral Lawcast. Shane Roddy from Lateral Lawyers, Liam Cowley, our other co-pilot, currently in Crete. I think I pronounced that correctly. I doubt he'll be tuning in. He'll be on the beach, no doubt, with one of his gold medallions on, as his wont. Fine young man that he is. I just wanted to do a quick session today, just with a bit of a sort of update on, how we're going, how we're seeing the market at the moment, and problems out of practice there. Hope that we've got me back there. Just a bit of an update about what we've been doing and sort of work we've been working on, what we're seeing in the market at the moment, sort of the scuttlebutt around the housing market is interesting. Talk about interest rates, it's just like interest rates, recession, interest rates. Try and look a little bit beyond the numbers, look a bit the numbers that we've been given in terms of inflation and recession. And you can sort of, what do they say, lie, statistics and more damn lies. You can, or something of that, something along those lines, in terms of how the economy is faring. And, there's obviously a huge negative slant or bias in the media, which us humans tend to, despite the fact we are told we shouldn't, we tend to clamour after bad news and negative information. So anyway, I will just bring up what I was looking to talk about today. There's just a couple of cases I found interesting in a service we get called Lexology, which a lot of firms around town contribute to, which can be interesting. It can be dry, but I thought I'd try and do a little bit of a lay translation of some of the cases that have come through the various forums lately. Kerno versus Advanced Security Group. Now, in this case, the company, presumably Advanced Security Group, fired one of their employees because that employee was supposed to have made unauthorized private recordings of conversations he or she weren't privy to, which incidentally is actually a breach of the criminal statute leading up to 2 years in jail. So, don't try that at home, guys. But also under an employment context, could be the basis for justified dismissal. Unfortunately for Advanced Security Group, they didn't follow the process in a way that the Employment Relations Authority endorsed, and they ended up paying out this person who had paying out this person that had made the secret recording, which sounds counterintuitive and perverse in the sense that it was clear they'd done something wrong. I think Lane Neve were the lawyers, were the authors of the article on Lexology, but the subject heading was, after I read it, I agreed with it, was process over substance again. So if you're an employer and you've got an employee that has done wrong in your view, in a layperson sense, still go and see your employment lawyer, barrister, and make sure, or at least HR person if they've got acceptable levels of experience with such matters, because this just seems so unfair that an employer in that situation would be also penalised for not. Sorry, I just got a text message because life and deals go on. So where was I? So yeah, it seems very unfair that an employer would be penalised for dismissing an employee in the circumstances when they had committed what would seem to be an egregious wrong. But if employers don't follow that process, they are still going to be penalised. I think it was a reduced penalty given the contributory nature of the employee's wrongdoing, but still that would have been a bitter pill to swallow for the people who were behind that company putting their hands into their pocket. Just bring up the next one. So 2 seconds, sorry. Unfair contract terms. So an amendment to the Fair Trading Act came into force. It was passed last year and it came into force on the 16th of August, which is last week. Time flies when you're getting old. And essentially the gist of it is that
to incorporate the unfair contract terms legislation to also apply to small business contracts, as well as whereas hitherto it had only applied to consumer contracts up to 250,000. I think there are a few other requirements, such as each party has to be engaged in trade, not be a consumer contract, and limited to 250, including I won't bore you with or labour the finer points of the legislation. Suffice to say for now, and we will do another podcast on it at some point when I've got someone like Liam who actually knows the law, can explicate the various finer points of that discussion. But suffice to say for now, it is arguably a good thing in the sense that some of these intuitively unfair contract terms, which find their way into finance contracts, insurance contracts, and other contracts where perhaps one party had a far stronger position than the other, and were able to, by leaning on their stronger position in the contractual relationship, get away with terms but for that power imbalance they would not have got away with. So at least from an abstract or a high definition point of view, it is a good thing. How it plays out in practice remains to be seen. I understand some of the bigger firms are currently working with some of their bigger clients, particularly finance insurance clients, to make changes or plan changes in the case of the insurance contracts. I believe those changes take effect in 2025 to make sure they don't fall foul of sanction in that regard. Commerce Commission, either at their own behest or at the behest of private individuals, can commence an investigation into parties which are alleged to have included unfair contract terms in their contracts. So that's an interesting one as well. And our last little tidbit for today is, this is interesting as well. At least for, excuse me, at least as far as business owners are concerned. If you're a business owner and you're wanting to sell your business, ride off into the sunset, have a mojito somewhere off the coast of maybe Koh Samui or somewhere like that, you need to think about the finer points of the transaction. Now, in some cases, as we've been dealing with for a client on a large transaction recently, that it may involve seeking expert from a competition law lawyer on approaching the Commerce Commission, or it may involve something as seemingly straightforward as the timing as to when you tell your employees or key employees, as the case may be, that you are planning to sell your business. Now, most owners, in our experience, first-hand experience, are loath to tell their employees that they're planning selling the business. You've got issues around loyalty. They may want a payout in terms of if they think that they've contributed, perhaps rightly, to get the business into the condition or the state of profitability that it's in terms of being saleable or saleable for a really handsome price for the owners. They may cause ructions within the team at work. It may be that you, as the client, perhaps had an unusual ability to manage and regulate the work environment, and for that reason, it would, if these people thought that there was no longer your pride and joy and you're no longer in it with them, so to speak, that would have a deleterious effect on the whole state of the business. So owners have a reluctance to disclose to employees that they are selling the business or planning to sell the business. However, that there can be some tricky considerations around timing for selling a business in as far as employees are concerned. And the reason for that is that under the Employment Relations Act, the statute governing employment law in New Zealand, there is actually a requirement that an employer will disclose prior to making any decision which may adversely affect the continuity of an employee's employment, disclose what that decision may be. Now, often cases with a sale and purchase agreement for assets or shares for the sale of one's business, there will be certain conditions, but one of them usually won't be the disclosure of the actual occurrence of the transaction or the sale to employees. It becomes a real tightrope in terms of when you tell these employees. and you'd need specific advice from us or an employment law specialist. If you're actually going to sell your business, so please don't use this informal video as some sort of sacrosanct advice on what to do or when to do it. But it's just an interesting one to get out there. It is, yes, it's an under the hood technical consideration for the lawyer that should be across that at the time. But it's just, in these podcasts, we're trying to arm people with as much informal or colloquial information as possible so they have some idea, or more of an idea, I should say, about what to actually do and in many cases not do when they are in the commercial sphere. So I hope that was somewhat illuminating, a little bit rusty. Apologies for the early technical fail. I understand I was speaking I've just got a few texts. They're about 20 seconds at the beginning with nothing coming out of my mouth at all, which for some of my naysayers out there will please them no end. But hey, look, at the end of the day, we're only human and we can only do what we can do. It's good to be back on the airways, and I look forward to getting the irascible comments and, slagging off as usual. So cheers. Have a great week.